Geeks and geekettes and all the ships at sea. It's Wednesday morning. It's time for another Ask Chuck Dixon, where you ask me about what I do for a living. What I do for a living is I write comic books. Before I start our usual business and go to the questions, I want to thank all of you who contributed to the St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital in exchange for the American Power Master File. If you missed the earlier videos, American Power was a project that was canceled by CrossGen due to controversy. It's a superhero book to be set in the War on Terror, and apparently that was way too much for people on the left, and we got canceled. So, but I wrote 2 issues, and there's some artwork, some cover, and some pages, and it's all included in the American Power Master File, which, if you email me at brunobookstore@gmail.com and tell me that you gave a couple of bucks to the St. Jude's Children's Hospital, I will send you the American Power Master File so you can read the first 2 issues in script and see what some of the artwork by Greg Land would have looked like. And St. Jude's, it's an awesome charity. They've saved the lives of thousands of children who were terminal, and their parents never received the bill. It's a wonderful hospital founded by Danny Thomas that's saved thousands of children. So just a few bucks, I mean, $5, so what, right? And I want to thank all of you who have been very generous over the Christmas holidays and contributed. I've sent out quite a few of these master files, and I appreciate your generosity. I'll repeat that email address at the end of the show. KP, this is a purely useless geek question. We love purely useless geek questions here. I have a mind full of purely useless geek questions. Okay, that's what this is all about. So bring them on. Okay, what does the GCPD think of Punisher? Especially Gordon, Bullock, Montoya. Would they all condemn Frank's actions? Would some of them sympathize but still disagree? Well, I think it's pretty clear where Gordon would stand. He's, been the protector of Batman. He's sort of the liaison between Batman and the police. Well, he's not sort of. He is the liaison between Batman and the GCPD. And they tolerate Batman because he plays by the rules. He doesn't kill anyone. He only goes after the most desperate criminals. The police really do need his help in Gotham City. And of course, aside from the fact that he's a badass detective, he also brings quite a bit of funding to crime fighting. He uses all the toys himself, but still, there's the GCPD have to be happy that there's someone spending money on law enforcement other than themselves. Now, Gordon's attitude toward the Punisher's a criminal. He's an outlaw. He kills criminals. He works outside the law, sometimes against the law. And Gordon would not sympathize with Frank's way of going about business. So I think that's pretty cut and dry. Same for Renee Montoya and the rest of the rank and file police officers. They would not appreciate the Punisher showing up. Now, Harvey Bullock is a more complex. Knee-jerk, you think Harvey would be, attaboy, Frank. You're taking another scumbag off the street. Back in 1888, when Jack the Ripper was terrorizing London, George Bernard Shaw famously said, "We all talk about social reform, but there's a chap out there doing something about it," which you might think would be Harvey Bullock's opinion, that Frank is taking criminals off the street. But Harvey Bullock wasn't exactly a 100% squeaky clean cop, so he may be on Frank's naughty list. And I think Harvey likes to be the only loose cannon in Gotham. He wouldn't appreciate another guy showing up and working his side of the street. So I think Harvey would have mixed emotions about what the Punisher would do in Gotham. He would be appreciative and sympathetic toward the Punisher's cause, but suspicious toward his main agenda. Because remember, Punisher is somewhat of a mystery to these people in the rare occasions that they have run into them in crossovers. But there you go. Michael Hutchison. Hey, Hutch. Marv Wolfman wrote Dick Grayson as a stern, serious person. He's not Batman, but Marv's Dick Grayson had grown out of his old boy wonder personality and had learned a serious tone from his mentor. When you began writing Nightwing, you clearly reawakened Grayson's love of teasing and taunting the bad guys and being a bit more of a motor mouth, more how you think that a sidekick would have grown up. Instead of mopey or angry with a chip on his shoulder about Bruce's behavior, he seems to have reached a spot in his life where he's over old resentments and is happy. That's how Nightwing is shown in adaptations like Young Justice, where the guy actually smiles like the rascal he was as a kid. Was this an effort on your part, or just how you always saw him in your head? Well, Marv had the task of growing Robin up, and I think he did a terrific job. But you reach a certain age and you look back on your life and you realize, I've evolved, I've changed. My environment and relationships and things like that, my experiences have changed me over time. And while I'm still basically the same person I was when I was young, I hopefully have improved. We all go through rough patches. There's always that part in your, late teenage years or young adulthood where you're a bit of an a-hole. You're a bit of a know-it-all. You think that you've got all the answers. I mean, what's so hard about life? I mean, you just do this and that and everything's fine. And I think that's where Dick Grayson was in the Teen Titans run. He was going through that phase, that sort of phase we all go through where we separate from our parents. We enter our adult life, and we can be a bit obnoxious. The other thing is he's the leader of a group. He's no longer a partner to a single crime fighter. He's not a part of a well-oiled machine. He's the leader of a group of, in some cases, brand new superheroes who don't know the ropes, who don't have his experience. This is why he's the leader. He has the most experience. He's been partnered with, the greatest crime fighter in the DCU, Batman. And I think that also makes him very serious and very stern because he's taking the job seriously. And he's taking on the onus of being the leader of a superhero ensemble. And, I think Marv intuited or purposely wrote him that way. I think it's just, that was the way that's what you had to do with that character. That was the part of his life he was going through at that time. And I think Marv did a good job of portraying that and putting that across, that this wasn't the, fun-loving, holy this, holy that sidekick of old. This was a guy with responsibilities, a grown-up man with responsibilities. Now, when I take him on, he's free of the Teen Titans. He's on his own. He's part of the Bat family, but he's in a new town. So he's very much on his own. He is a single act, and he's enjoying it. He's a young guy, new in town, looking for some action. He's unattached romantically. It's a new beginning. We've all had that, where you get your first apartment, before the first rent bill comes due. And it all seems like so much fun. I'm on my own. I got my own car, and I got my own place to live and a place for my stuff. And, I can do whatever I want. There's that feeling of independence and freedom. And I think at this point in his life, Dick Grayson has learned to like himself. And as you said, Hutch, he's gotten over all these resentments and the rest of it that he had with Batman. That was all part of the separation process, leaving home process. So, yeah, I think probably like Marv did, part of the way I treated Nightwing was intuitive. Part of it was I actually put some active thought to it. What would this guy be like? And my biggest aim was that he not be Batman Jr. He'd be entirely his own character in every way, shape, and form. And I was, aided and abetted by my editor, Scott Peterson, and of course, at the beginning, the fantastic artists like Scott McDaniel, to help me make Dick Grayson as Nightwing return to the Batman universe and be unique and different, interesting, and his own man. So, great question. Great question. Okay. I had another great question, but it's not here. Where did it go? Huh. I lost a question. Hey, this is what happens when I do these live edit. Well, I'm not going to redo this whole dang video up to this point just because I lost my question, because I remember the question, but I don't remember who asked it. But the question was about the Punisher. They often say that the Punisher is a character that I still think of stories for, even though I don't write the Punisher anymore. Nobody pays me to think about it anymore. So, in what instances did I think of Punisher stories? What happened in the world that made me think of a Punisher story? One of the earliest I can think of is the handover of Hong Kong to Red China, to the People's Republic. And I actually pitched a story that Rodolfo DiMaggio and I were going to do about the handover, and it involved Fing Fang Foom and stuff like that. So the Punisher was right in the middle of this story in which an artifact, a paleontological artifact in a Hong Kong museum, was being shipped to mainland China because the Chinese army realized that it wasn't just a paleontological artifact. It was actually a Fing Fang Foom egg for a baby dragon. Baby dragon that's 20 stories tall. And Frank wanted to, he knew that this weapons transfer was happening, and he wanted to be there, either to stop it or to get this weapon for himself. Marvel rejected the idea, and we never did it, but it's an example. Another one was Katrina. Here, let me get the Punisher in here. Yeah. Another one was Katrina. Wow, what a... When the hurricane hit New Orleans and Biloxi and places like that, they immediately became, places where the law was having a hard time, working. So these were lawless regions. There was a lot of looting, a lot of crime, a lot of corruption, a lot of nasty stuff going on. And I always thought, well, I would have a reason why the Punisher was in town when that hurricane hit, or to see as an opportunity, because the National Guard and the law enforcement agencies were so busy with Katrina itself, they wouldn't notice a guy slipping into town to knock off a few criminals that maybe were on his list but formerly untouchable. So this would be sort of the Punisher's Mardi Gras. And I thought a lot about it. I thought about the idea of him encountering a congressman with a literal boatload of cash, which actually happened in real life, and what would he do about that? So another one, of course, is the withdrawal from Afghanistan. I would find a reason for Frank to be there because it's just a flashpoint. Let's face it, the Punisher is the guy who jumps in front of the fan after the crap has hit the fan. And it just seemed like a perfect place for him to be. The recent Summer of Love riots we had, of course, Frank would be out there, in the midst of it. A lot of parts of our major cities, including New York City, became war zones in the summer of 2020, and there's no reason why the Punisher wouldn't be in the middle of all of that. And and then the recent rise in crime. This is what the Punisher is created for. The Punisher is born out of the vigilante action fiction, like in paperbacks or the movie Death Wish or whatever. He's born out of that, and that was born out of a frustration in the rising crime rate in the 1970s. And now we're in a place where our current crime rate makes the 1970s crime rate look like Boy Scout jamboree. I mean, we're seeing rises in all kinds of violent crime, homicide, rape, assault, robbery, and all the rest of it. And Punisher would be a busy, busy boy in most urban centers. So, yeah, I mean, and each one of these examples I gave, I've thought of Punisher stories. What would Frank do? Sorry that I lost the question. How did I lose the question? If you asked the question, if you are the perpetrator of that question, please let me know by email, and I will make sure to credit you in a future broadcast. Ablo Show. I've been reading your stuff over the years, and I've seen that you like writing street-level heroes. I wonder if you've ever thought about pitching for Spider-Man. Nightwing is very Daredevil-esque, so I also wonder if you've ever pitched for Daredevil. I've told this before, but back in the 70s when Archie Goodwin would allow me to come in for interviews, I would ask, impertinent and rude questions because I was a young kid with a dream and I had no idea how tactless I was being. And I was getting frustrated at not knowing what to do next in comics. And this is early days. I really didn't know what I was doing. I just had a bunch of ideas. And Archie would very, very kindly allow me to come into the offices and tell him my ideas. And at one point, I was always pitching like new stuff, creator-owned stuff. And he said, well, you really should think about pitching or established characters. And I said, well, help me out there because I'm kind of, punching in the dark. Are there any characters no one wants to write? Now, remember, this is the 70s. And Archie's like, he took the Stan Lee line first. Oh, everybody loves writing all of our characters. All of our characters are so wonderful and engaging. Everybody loves writing them. And I said, come on, Archie, there has to be a character that no one wants to write. And I know this is shocking to think of today, but Archie said, yeah, nobody wants to write Spider-Man or the Hulk. And I'm like, what? So when I actually started working at Marvel, Larry Hama went around to once he realized I was reliable, I could turn something in on time, and I was conscientious, I would make changes, I was flexible. In other words, I was a professional. He went around to other editors and sung my praises. He said, hey, if you ever need anybody for anything, this guy, he's looking for work. He's an up-and-comer, and I've been really happy with what he's done for me. He gets it, okay? And one of those editors was the Spider-Man editor. And Larry strongly urged me, pitch some stuff to the Spider-Man editor. And I love Spider-Man, and he's very street level. And so I pitched a story. It was just like a standalone story. And talk about street level, it was literally street level. Because I wrote a story about how Spider-Man's pursuing someone. And, there's something at stake. I can't remember what. But he's got to pursue this person without letting the person know he's pursuing him. Well, for Spider-Man, that's easy. He just swings from rooftop to rooftop. And he's able to follow this guy. Well, the guy gets on a city bus. And Spider-Man says, hey, no problem. So he's following him along, rooftop to rooftop. And then the bus enters an area where there aren't any tall buildings. And eventually, there are no buildings. So how does Spider-Man follow someone when there's no high ground? And that's what the story was about. And all the clever ways that Spider-Man managed to stick with this guy without his usual venue of, being 10 stories up looking down at the world. And the editor rejected it. And not only did he reject it, but he said that he felt that the story mocked Spider-Man. And that he psychoanalyzed me. He said, this comes from your contempt for the character. I was stunned. I said, my contempt for Spider-Man? I love Spider-Man. I mean, the reason I write comic books is most probably because of Steve Ditko's Spider-Man. I mean, Spider-Man was my whole life for a long time when I was a little kid. It was just my favorite thing ever. I read the covers off of them. I would go on to use Spider-Man as a template, those first 40-some issues as a template, again and again, as to how to write a superhero comic. And I said, look, it's not written out of contempt. He goes, yeah, well, you have it so that he's failing. It's not he's not failing. He's being challenged, and he's up to the challenge. He succeeds in the end. It's not making fun of him. It's just simply exploring an aspect of Spider-Man's abilities that no one's explored before. Well, the guy wouldn't buy it. He never hired me for anything ever again, or he never hired me at all, and that was the end of it. And as much goodwill as I had from Larry Hama, I think this guy probably went around saying, "Oh, this guy doesn't like our characters, or he mocks our characters, or has contempt for our characters." And, that nothing could be further from the truth. But that seemed to be the book on me in mainstream Marvel from that point on. I had a number of editors make reference, oblique references to the fact that I wasn't taking this work very seriously, or I didn't like their characters. To the point where I had a major group editor call and yell at me one time because he didn't like the way I treated a character, and that's, that he didn't like my attitude toward Marvel Comics, which, whatever. So that's why I never worked on Spider-Man, and I never bothered to pitch anything again, because it was pretty much unwelcome. The group editor who took over on Spider-Man had the ability to act as if I wasn't in the room whenever I was at Marvel. He would talk to everybody but me and just look through me as if I didn't exist. So it's not hard to get a bad rep in this business. As far as Daredevil, I wrote some Daredevil in Marvel Knights, but Daredevil's not a character I ever really cared about. I read a lot of Daredevil when I was a kid, particularly the Gene Colan run. I enjoyed them and everything else, but to me, Daredevil is just a little bit too much of a choir boy. For all the stuff he's seen as a lawyer, and him being a lawyer is not really attractive to me either. Not a lot of respect for lawyers here. I just thought everything this guy's seen, and he just seems to be so optimistic, and at the same time so tormented. He was just too emo a character for me. The way he was portrayed, like post Gene Colan's run, post Stan Lee's run. I just didn't care for the character. He seemed like a moper. So there you go. What can I say? John Trent, I'm looking for your analysis of Batman's psyche and why he fights crime. Well, I think the real question is, why does he continue to fight crime? We all know why he became Batman. It's a promise to his parents to avenge them, or to find some sense of justice for himself over this senseless murder that he witnessed as a child. So he becomes Batman as the result of basically childhood trauma. He's dealing with that horrible night that lives in his mind. I mean, of course it would. See something like that as a child, it's indelible. You're never going to forget it. It's going to alter the course of your existence. So we all know why he fights crime, but why does he continue? And I remember reading about the origin story, or retelling of the origin story in the 50s, and they went into the whole thing with Joe Chill and how Batman captures Joe Chill. And I was maybe 10 or 11 when I read that story, and I hated it. I said, I don't want Batman to ever find who killed his parents. I think that was a wrong way to go, because why would he continue being Batman? He made good on his promise, and so why would he keep on doing that? And I didn't quite get it. So when I came on to write Batman, that was the one little piece of continuity I changed. I know, I always preach about not going back to the origin and changing things, but I couldn't resist that one. I went back and changed the origin so that Joe Chill was suspect number one, but it turned out not to be Joe Chill. That Bruce Wayne, with his incredible detective skills, is finally able to find out that no, the man who is accused of killing my parents, suspected of killing him, he's not the one, and I can't find the guy and may never know. And so to me, that's the reason why he continues to fight crime, because he's looking for the guy who killed his parents. Now he knows at this point this guy may be long dead, or I'll never find him. Chances are maybe I did catch him and I didn't know that was the guy, but I'm putting all these guys away. They're all, I'm serving justice here, cleaning up the streets, and that's his modus. Now, on the flip side, if you take my version of continuity, and he knows it wasn't Joe Chill, my thing is he in his search for Joe Chill, he realized how desperately needed he was in Gotham, and so that's the mission. Now the mission changes from the promise he made to his parents to a responsibility to the community that he can't turn away. As Randolph Scott used to say in the Westerns, there's some things a man can't ride around. And Batman cannot ride around the chaotic, anarchic world of crime, the vibrant underworld that seems to permeate Gotham. And so now, from childhood trauma to crusade, Batman is going to, that's his motivation. And he's got the skills, and he's got the funds, and how are you going to walk away from that? This is his thing now for the rest of his life. So that's as deep into the psyche as I can get on that overall topic. Vile Corrupt, he asks, can I get your top 5 Viking films, be they straight Viking movies or Viking fish out of water tales? There's not a lot of Viking movies out there, so finding the top 5 wasn't that hard. I got to start number 1, one I loved as a kid, rewatched it recently, it still holds up marvelously, is The Vikings. Kirk Douglas, Tony Curtis, Janet Leigh, Ernest Borgnine as Ragnar. It was made in Scandinavia. It's a hell of a flick. It's from the 50s, and multiple viewings on TV when I was a kid. I've owned it on VHS, Laserdisc, DVD, and I just recently bought a Blu-ray, and I had that in the machine. But it's a great, rousing action flick that's surprisingly accurate, given the period it's in. It's got a marvelous movie, musical score, and the end scene, which is depicted here, which is atop a castle. It's at the very top of like a castle keep. Still works today. It is a dizzying scene. It is a vertigo-inducing scene as Kirk Douglas and Tony Curtis have their final standoff. Way up above the siege works of an English castle. It's good stuff, good rousing stuff. The next one is The 13th Warrior. It's based on a Michael Crichton novel, Eaters of the Dead. Michael Crichton wrote the screenplay, John McTiernan directs, and it's about a band of Vikings who, in the novel, they face down the last remaining tribe of Neanderthals, way up in the northern reaches of Scandinavia. The movie makes it less clear what this menacing force is, but nonetheless, it's a great Viking film. It's got all the great attitude of the Vikings. You're either lucky or you're dead. That kind of approach to life. The period detail, the language, the fights are fantastic and realistically done, and and a fantastic cast. It's a winner all the way around, and I wish they put this one on Blu-ray, but or do a restoration on it. But just a terrific film. That said, apparently there's 2 cuts. There's a John McTiernan cut, and there's a Michael Crichton cut. I've only seen the McTiernan cut. I would love to see the Crichton cut because I understand it's significantly different. But it's good stuff. It is good stuff. Another one is a Russian film simply called Viking, and it's just got some awesome imagery. It's terrific fight scenes. It's very dour. It's a Russian movie. It's very dour. It's very bleak. Aren't you surprised that a Russian movie would be dour and bleak? But it is, which all, of course, lends to the the believability of this period picture. Verisimilitude. There it is. It's a fun word to say when you say it right. And it's the only Viking film I can think of that deals with the advent of Christianity, and in a positive way. So, but it is a true epic, cast of thousands, some amazing sets. I mean, you want to see huge set piece battles between Vikings, and of course the Russians. The word Russia comes from a Viking tribe, the Rus. Russians were an enormous influence in Russia, as they were across the rest of Europe. And there's a lot of, just as we have here in the United States, there's a lot of, romantic feelings about the Viking era. And this film really brings it. I think the fish out of water story you're talking about was Outlander. Jim Caviezel is a Viking. Well, he's not a Viking. He's an alien. He's a humanoid alien. Is he from the future? Is he from a distant planet? Never really made clear. But he crash lands in Scandinavia during the Viking era and runs into a bunch of Vikings, John Hurt, Ron Perlman, who are being threatened by an alien critter that's stowed away upon his ship. And it's kind of Predator with Vikings, but different. It is bloody. It's a bloody, nasty, gory film, and it works. The suspense. The only thing it doesn't work is it's not pictured here, but Caviezel has this like weird fur vest, which I wish they hadn't put on him. Caviezel's a terrific actor, and I realize he's supposed to not look like a Viking. But he picks up this leather vest that looks like something that might be in Cher's closet, and to me it kind of takes away from his screen presence in the film. But other than that, it's a hell of a movie. It's a good science fiction movie. It's a good Viking movie. Another one is The Last King, which is an actual Norwegian production about the heir to the king of the Vikings. That would be the King of Denmark or King of Norway, and the two Vikings entrusted with keeping this infant alive while the dastardly enemies of their tribe want to kill the baby to put in their own preferred leader. It's a great chase film. The period detail's terrific, and like I said, it's shot, on location, which brings a lot to the story. One coming up I haven't seen yet, so it can't be one of my top 5 because I haven't seen it, but it's by the guy that directed The Witch, and it's called The Northman, and trailers I've seen and images I've seen from it, it looks like the real deal, so it's something to look forward to. So that's it for Viking movies. There's not a whole lot. I mean, that Lee Majors Viking movie, there's been some Viking comedies and things like that, but there you go. There's my 5 favorites and an extra. Ivan or Ivan Aguila or Aguila. Well, I'm murdering your name all over the place, and I probably didn't ever get near it. Who the heck is Bruno Bookstore? I use a Bruno Bookstore email. Bruno Books was my self-publishing imprint that I used to use through Amazon, and it was named for Bruno, which was my cat. Bruno passed a year or so ago, but he was a big Tonkinese. People would say, "Why did you name your cat Bruno?" And then they would see the picture and go, "Yeah, he's a Bruno." And so I picked him, and he's on the company logo, as you can see at the top of those books. And he was a constant companion when I was writing, always hanging out in the office with me, and he would watch movies with me. If you wonder what his favorite movie was, it was Lawrence of Arabia. He actually sat and watched most of Lawrence of Arabia, I think mostly because you had isolated figures set against negative space. So you could actually see, camels and men moving across the screen. And it happened often enough, it kept him interested for 2 hours. So he was, as I said, a constant companion for many, many years, especially as I was writing novels, which, was a lot more intense, a lot more time spent in the office, and he'd hang with me. So, very cool cat. So as I said, you can contact me at any time through Bruno Bookstore, Bruno Bookstores at gmail.com. That's Bruno Bookstore singular at gmail.com with any questions, or if you wanted to get in on that American Power Master File in exchange for a donation to St. Jude's. And before I let you go, I got my 2 Westerns are up on Amazon in brand new editions. Snake Hand, written with John Morgan Neal, and La Gringa, a new one. And they're both up on Amazon. They're part of the Sidewinders book series. I am deep into writing book 3, even as I speak. And go take a look. If you like cowboy epics, if you like historical period action dramas, I think you'll enjoy these. People tell me they liked them. There's a quote for you. They liked them. So check it out. And I will see you all down the road.